Hey, Reddit, throwaway account, because my wife and some of her friends know my main. My wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5. We met in college. She was the loud, confident girl who could light up a room, and I was the quiet guy who always thought he was out of her league. Somehow it worked. We were that couple people called solid. We bought a house together, talked about kids, even adopted a dog last year. I really thought she was my forever person. But over the last 6 months, something shifted. At first, it was little things. She started working late more often, said her boss was piling on projects. She became snappy when I'd ask her about her day. Her phone, which used to just sit on the counter, suddenly became glued to her hand. She even started taking it to the bathroom. Like, who does that? At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe she was just stressed or dealing with something she didn't want to talk about yet. But the distance between us grew, like this invisible wall. She'd come home late, shower immediately, and say she was too tired to talk. The woman I married, the one who used to text me "miss you" in the middle of the day, had basically turned into a stranger. And deep down, I think I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it. So like I said, I tried to ignore it at first. Told myself every excuse in the book. She's stressed. Work is crazy. Maybe I'm being needy. You know, the usual mental gymnastics you do when you don't want to believe something's wrong. But then the excuses started stacking up, and they didn't make sense anymore. She started dressing differently for work. She used to throw on jeans and a cardigan, but suddenly it was skirts, perfume, and makeup. For her office job, where everyone works remote 3 days a week, she'd leave earlier, come back later. If I asked about her day, she'd either give me one-word answers or get defensive. Like I'd say, "Rough day?" And she'd snap, "Can I be tired without explaining every little thing?" The fights started small, but they became constant. She'd pick at me for no reason. How I folded laundry, how I never do dishes right, how I always forget things. Stuff that never used to bother her suddenly became reasons to blow up. And the phone. God, the phone. Notifications would pop up, and she'd turn the screen away or flip it over fast. Once I caught her smiling at her phone, that soft kind of smile, the one she used to give me. When I asked who she was talking to, she rolled her eyes and said, "Just a meme from Sarah." Jesus, you're paranoid. I wanted to believe her so badly. I wanted to believe I wasn't turning into one of those insecure husbands who checks his wife's messages. But my gut wouldn't shut up. Something was off. Then one night, I caught her in what I now realize was her first real lie, or at least the first one I caught. She said she was going out for a girls' night. I didn't think much of it until I noticed she took her overnight bag. When I asked why, she said, "In case I crash at Emily's, we might drink." I nodded, trying to play it cool, but my chest was tight the whole time. When she left, I noticed she'd changed her perfume. Not her usual floral one, but something new, heavy and sweet. And then for the first time in our marriage, she didn't text me goodnight. I didn't sleep at all that night. Something in me knew this wasn't girls' night. It was something else. The next morning, she came home around 8 a.m., wearing different clothes. Not her usual "I crashed at Emily's" hoodie and leggings combo, but a tight black dress and heels in her hand. Hair messy, makeup smudged. I asked, half joking, "Rough girls' night?" She froze for a second, just a second, and then laughed. "Oh my God, yeah. We went to a club after dinner. I didn't plan to, but Emily insisted. My feet are killing me. Thing is, I know Emily. She's married with a baby, and she's not the go clubbing on a Thursday type. But I didn't push. I just said, 'Oh, sounds fun,' and tried to sound casual. Then I noticed something. On her neck, just under her jaw. Faint, but there. A small, reddish mark. I stared at it, and my brain immediately went to the worst place. She noticed me looking and said, 'What?' in that sharp tone. I said, 'You have a mark on your neck.' And she immediately touched it, shrugged, and said, 'Oh, that's from my curling iron.' I nodded, but my stomach dropped. Because she doesn't use a curling iron. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying that moment. The mark, her weird laugh, her overnight bag. Every detail screamed at me that something wasn't right. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I'd never done in my life. I checked her phone. She had changed the password. That's when I knew for sure. You don't change your password in a marriage where there's nothing to hide. After that night, it was like my brain flipped a switch. I couldn't stop noticing things. Every inconsistency, every lie, every weird tone suddenly made sense. I just didn't have proof. Yet. So I started paying attention. Quietly. I wasn't about to confront her without something solid. She was already calling me paranoid and controlling just for asking questions, so I knew if I didn't have evidence, she'd gaslight me into doubting myself. A few days later, she said she had a team-building dinner after work. Again, new perfume, extra makeup, and that dress, the same one from girls' night. I pretended to be chill about it, even kissed her goodbye. But as soon as she left, I grabbed my keys. Her office is about 20 minutes away. I parked a few blocks down from the restaurant she said she'd be at, a trendy Italian place. I waited in my car, trying not to feel like a complete psycho. But when you've loved someone for 8 years, you know when something's off. About 30 minutes later, I saw her. She got out of an Uber smiling, not her fake work smile, but her real one, the one she used to save for me. And she wasn't alone. A guy got out behind her, tall, clean cut, holding his hand on her lower back. I felt my chest tighten so hard I couldn't breathe. They walked inside together. She didn't even look around, like she wasn't scared of getting caught, like she knew I trusted her too much to even question it. I sat there for a while, numb. I thought about going in, confronting them right there, but I didn't. Instead, I snapped a picture, not out of revenge, but because I knew she'd lie if I didn't have proof. She got home at 11:30 p.m. that night, reeking of that same sweet perfume. Dinner ran late, she said casually, dropping her bag by the door. I just nodded. I didn't say a word, because for the first time I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. After that night, something inside me changed. I wasn't just the confused husband anymore. I was a man on a mission. I needed to know everything. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me again or twist things until I was the crazy one. So I started quietly collecting evidence. First, I went through our shared phone bill. Sure enough, there was a number I didn't recognize. Dozens of texts, random calls, sometimes at 2 or 3 a.m. The number wasn't labeled, of course, but the frequency made it obvious. I reverse searched it, and guess what? It belonged to her coworker, the one she always mentioned in passing. Mark, the guy who just started and needed help settling in. Yeah, settling in all right. Next, I checked her iCloud, and this part gutted me. There were photos. Nothing explicit, but just enough to crush me. Her at a bar, laughing, holding a drink. Him sitting right next to her, hand on her thigh. Another one of them in a car, his arm around her shoulder. They looked like a couple. My wife, smiling like she'd forgotten I even existed. Then there were the receipts. She'd been using our joint card at places she said she was too busy to go to. Restaurants, bars, a hotel charge for one night that she claimed was a conference stay. It was like the pieces just started falling together, faster and faster, until I was staring at this picture of a life I didn't even recognize. I'll never forget the moment it hit me fully. I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through those photos, and I just broke. Like something inside me cracked open. I wanted to scream, punch something, anything, but all I did was sit there, completely silent, while our dog laid his head on my lap like he knew. That was the night I decided I had to confront her. But I wasn't going in blind. I had my proof, screenshots, phone records, photos, everything. Because after all her lies, all her fake smiles, all the times she told me, "You're imagining things," I was finally ready to make her tell the truth. I'll be honest. I replayed the confrontation in my head 100 times before it actually happened. Sometimes I imagined myself staying calm, just presenting the evidence like a detective. Other times I pictured yelling, crying, demanding answers. In the end, I did neither. It was a Saturday morning. She was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal. I sat across from her and said, as evenly as I could, "We need to talk." She looked up, already annoyed. "About what now?" I took a deep breath and said, "About Mark." Instantly, her face changed. Just for a moment. Then she forced this fake, confused laugh. "Who?" I slid my phone across the table. On the screen was the picture of her and him at the restaurant, his hand on her lower back. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked from the photo to me. That's, that's taken out of context, she said, voice trembling slightly. Out of context? I said quietly. What context makes it okay for your coworker to have his hand on you while you lie to me about a girl's night? And just like that, the floodgates opened. Not the truth, but the lies. She went on this whole rant about how I was snooping, invading her privacy, and controlling. She said, "You don't trust me, and that's the real problem." I laughed, actually laughed, because the sheer audacity was insane. I showed her the text logs, the receipts, even the hotel charge, and she still tried to spin it. "Oh my God, we had to stay overnight because of a last-minute meeting." Those texts? Work-related. The restaurant photos? Group dinner, someone just cropped the others out. She had an answer for everything, and every single one was a lie. Finally, I just said it. "I know you're cheating on me. I know about the hotel, I know about the dinners, and I know about him. Stop lying." She went quiet, totally still. Then she said, cold as ice, "You're pathetic, you know that? You don't have proof of anything real. You're just insecure because I have a life outside of you." That line, that was the moment I realized the woman I married, the one who once cried because she thought she'd hurt my feelings, was gone. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood up, took my phone and said, "I'll send you the proof when you're ready to stop pretending." Then I walked out. I spent that night at my brother's place, sitting in his spare room, staring at the ceiling. The anger hadn't even hit yet, just this hollow, stunned silence. The woman I loved had looked me in the eye and lied without flinching. The day after I confronted her was surreal. You know that feeling when your life keeps moving, but your mind's just stuck? That was me. I woke up at my brother's place, disoriented, half expecting a text from her apologizing, begging to talk, but nothing, not a single message. Around noon, she finally texted, not to say sorry, not to explain, but to accuse. "Can't believe you'd spy on me like that. You seriously need help." That was it. No acknowledgement, no remorse, just blame. I stared at the message, and something in me snapped. All those years of loyalty, all the trust I'd given her, and this was her response? A few hours later, I went home. She was there, sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone like nothing happened. When I walked in, she didn't even look up. Just said, "So, are you done being dramatic?" I almost laughed. I told her, "I'm done, yeah, but not the way you think." That got her attention. She looked up frowning. I told her I'd already backed up everything. The texts, the photos, the call logs, and that I'd spoken to a lawyer. Her face drained of color. Now she was the one panicking. She started crying, saying, "Wait, please, can we talk about this?" She grabbed my arm, said she didn't mean for things to go this far, that it was a mistake, and that she still loved me. It was wild. 24 hours ago, I was the paranoid control freak, and now she was crying about losing me. I asked her one question. "How long has it been going on?" She wiped her tears, sniffled, and whispered, "A few weeks." That was another lie. I already knew from the phone records it had been at least 4 months. I just nodded and said, "Okay," and went upstairs to pack a bag. She followed me, crying harder, saying, "You're overreacting. We can fix this." But I was done, absolutely done. When I left, she shouted after me, "You'll regret this when you realize how much you've lost." I turned back and said, "I already lost it." You made sure of that. That night, I sat in my car for a long time before driving off. It hit me then. The grief, the betrayal, the disbelief that someone I trusted with everything could be so cruel, so selfish, and still act like I was the problem. It wasn't just a broken heart. It was a complete shattering of reality. The first week after I left was brutal. I moved into my brother's spare room temporarily, Just a mattress on the floor, a few boxes of clothes, and my laptop. Everything else I owned was still back in the house I'd worked my ass off to buy. The silence was the worst part. For years, I'd gotten used to her voice echoing through the house, the sound of her humming while she cooked, the random texts during the day. Now it was just me, and every time my phone buzzed, I half hoped it was her saying something real, something honest. But every message that came in just pushed that hope further away. She texted a few times that week. At first, it was guilt-trippy stuff like, "You're really just going to throw everything away over one mistake?" Then it switched to defensive, "You're making me out to be a monster. You don't even know the full story." And when I didn't reply, she went full spiteful. "You're pathetic. Go cry to your brother. I'm done trying." Each message just made it easier to stay gone. I started noticing all the small things that used to feel normal, but now seemed twisted. Like, I'd open the fridge and see the groceries I always bought for her. The playlists I made for our road trips popped up on shuffle and made my stomach turn. Even brushing my teeth alone in a quiet bathroom felt strange, like I was borrowing someone else's life. At night, I'd lie awake wondering when exactly it all started. Was she already cheating that night? She said she was too tired to be intimate. Was every "I love you" just a script she kept repeating until I stopped noticing it was empty? I kept trying to tell myself I didn't miss her, just the person I thought she was. But grief doesn't care about logic. It still hurt. What made it worse was realizing how many people she'd probably lied to. Our friends, her coworkers, maybe even her family. I started wondering if everyone already knew and just didn't tell me. One night, after a few beers, I went back through our wedding photos. She looked so happy in those pictures. I looked at her eyes, the same eyes that could lie to my face without blinking. And for the first time, I didn't feel love. I just felt pity. Pity for her. And maybe for the guy who had no idea what kind of person she really was. About 2 weeks after I left, I got a message that changed everything. Not from her, but from one of her friends, Lena. Now, Lena and my wife used to be pretty close. I always liked her. She was blunt, no nonsense, the kind of person who didn't play along with my wife's drama. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone, I hesitated before opening it. Her first message said, "Hey, I don't want to get in the middle of things, but you deserve to know what really happened." My stomach dropped. I called her immediately. She sighed and said, "Look, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but she's been seeing that guy for a while. Everyone kind of knew something was up, but she kept saying you two were basically done, that you were just roommates." That hit me like a freight train. Roommates. That's what my wife told people we were? Lena kept going. It started before the summer. They'd meet up after work, sometimes during lunch. A few of us told her it was messed up, but she said you were boring and didn't make her feel alive anymore. Honestly, I stopped hanging out with her because it got so toxic. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling my pulse in my throat. I think I said something like, "Thank you for telling me," but I barely heard my own voice. After that call, everything clicked into place. All the lies, the gaslighting, the weird coldness. She hadn't slipped up. She'd replaced me months before I even realized it. Later that night, I got another message, this time from the guy she'd been seeing. Yeah, Mark himself. He wrote, "Hey man, I didn't know she was still with you. She told me you were separated. I'm sorry. I didn't even know how to respond." He sent a few screenshots after that, texts between him and her, and they were exactly what you'd expect. Her lying, saying we barely talk anymore, that he's moving out soon. She was playing both of us. For some reason, that actually made me feel calmer, because for weeks I'd been wondering what I did wrong, how I'd lost her, what I could have done differently. But after seeing all that, I realized the truth. It wouldn't have mattered. She was always going to cheat, because that's just who she is. And weirdly, that realization didn't break me. It freed me. It didn't take long for word to get around. Small town, mutual friends, co-workers. Once one person knew, everyone did. And once she realized people were talking, she absolutely lost it. It started with angry texts. "You're telling people lies about me. You're trying to ruin my reputation. You're obsessed with making me look like the bad guy. I hadn't said a word to anyone except my brother and Lena. The truth was spreading all on its own, because people talk and screenshots don't lie. Then the deflection turned into full-blown damage control. She posted this long, dramatic story on her social media about healing and leaving a toxic relationship and how she was finally putting herself first. It was wild. The comments were full of people saying things like, "You're so strong, and you deserve happiness." Meanwhile, I was sitting there with receipts showing she'd been sleeping with another man for months while lying to both of us. I didn't engage. I didn't post anything back. I didn't need to. Truth has a funny way of catching up on its own. About a week later, a mutual friend texted me saying she'd been crying at a get-together because everyone was turning against her. Apparently, Mark had dumped her too once he found out the full story. She tried to play victim with him, but he wasn't having it. So now she was alone. No affair partner, no credibility, and slowly losing her friends. And here's the weird part. I thought I'd feel satisfied seeing karma do its thing. But I didn't. I just felt empty. Because even though she deserved every bit of it, this wasn't how I wanted our story to end. We had a whole life, memories, plans, dreams, and she burned it all down just to feel alive for a few months. And here's the weird part. I thought I'd feel satisfied seeing karma do its thing. But I didn't. I just felt empty. Because even though she deserved every bit of it, this wasn't how I wanted our story to end. We had a whole life, memories, plans, dreams, and she burned it all down just to feel alive for a few months. I deleted her number that night, blocked her on everything. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. And for the first time since everything started, the silence didn't feel unbearable. It felt peaceful. Even after she was gone and the chaos had started to settle, the emotional fallout hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought leaving and cutting her off would be the end of it, but grief doesn't work like that. The first few nights alone in our empty house were hell. The silence screamed at me. I could hear every little creak, every distant car driving by. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced I'd imagined everything, and she'd walk through the door laughing like nothing happened. I went through stages I didn't even know existed. Denial. I'd catch myself thinking, this isn't real. She'll apologize. She'll come back. Anger. I wanted to smash things, yell at the walls, burn every picture. Every time I remembered her lies, the mark on her neck, the fake smiles, the rage surged. Sadness. Nights spent staring at the ceiling, crying silently, wondering if I'd ever trust someone again. All the plans, the forever I thought we had, ripped away. I started journaling just to make sense of it all, writing her name, the things she did, my feelings, everything. It helped. But sometimes I'd pause mid-page, close my eyes, and realize the hurt hadn't faded at all. It was just quieter, lurking under the surface. Then came guilt. Not for what I didn't do anything wrong, but for feeling like maybe I wasn't enough. I replayed our years together, all the times I could have been better, all the arguments I'd had. That self-doubt was poisonous. Even when friends tried to cheer me up, there was this part of me that couldn't shake the betrayal. It made every laugh feel hollow, every text from a friend feel like background noise. But slowly, bit by bit, something shifted. Anger softened. Sadness became acceptance. And I realized it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me, reclaiming my life from the wreckage she left behind. After a few months of living in that weird, suspended state of grief, anger, and numbness, I started noticing small changes in myself. Things I hadn't done in years because life had been all about us. Now, it was about me. I started running again. Not jogging, not casually. Real, exhausting runs that left my legs burning and my chest pounding. At first, it was just a way to escape my own thoughts, but over time, it became a ritual. I could feel my body and mind clearing, like I was reclaiming space that had been hers for so long. I also reconnected with friends I drifted away from. Game nights, casual beers, late-night talks. Things that had felt small, but suddenly became massive lifelines. For the first time in months, I laughed without it feeling like a betrayal of my own sadness. I even started picking up hobbies I'd abandoned. Photography, reading fiction again, trying to learn guitar. Silly stuff, but it made me feel human again. The world wasn't just her absence. It was mine to live in, fully. And yes, I thought about dating, tentatively. The idea of someone else in my life made me anxious at first, like a door I wasn't sure I was ready to open. But over time, I realized it wasn't about replacing her. It was about proving to myself that I could love, trust, and be happy again, without her in the picture. The hardest part wasn't letting go of her. It was letting go of the future I thought we'd have. But I realized that future had been a lie. And letting it go didn't feel like defeat. It felt like freedom. For the first time in years, I felt like myself. Not the husband she betrayed, not the man trapped in a house full of memories, just me, standing on solid ground again. It's been about a year since everything came crashing down, and looking back, there's a lot I've had to digest. I learned things the hard way, but I also learned things that no one can ever take from me. First, trust your gut. I ignored those early signs, the phone glued to her hand, the weird nights out, the sudden defensiveness, because I wanted to believe in the us I thought we had. Don't make that mistake. Your instincts are usually right. Second, people don't change for you. I spent so much time hoping she'd admit it, apologize, or come back. That hope kept me chained to someone who had already chosen a different path. Some people don't love you the way you love them, and that's not your fault. Third, evidence matters, but self-respect matters more. I kept proof, not for revenge, but for clarity. But no number of screenshots could fix the emotional damage. What fixed me was reclaiming my life, my routines, and my happiness. Fourth, anger and grief are temporary, but growth is permanent. There were moments when I thought I'd never stop feeling betrayed. I cried, I raged, I wanted to scream her name in public. But eventually the feelings softened. They became fuel. Fuel to rebuild, to find peace, to become stronger than I was before. Lastly, it's okay to put yourself first. For too long, I let her happiness define mine. Now I make my own choices. I invest in my own dreams, my own health, my own relationships. That's not selfish. It's necessary. I'll be honest. I'll probably always carry a scar from this. But scars remind you that you survived, that you rebuilt, that you're stronger than what tried to break you. After processing the betrayal and learning my lessons, the next step was actually moving forward. Not just surviving, but living. I started setting boundaries with her, even though she tried to reach out a few times with fake apologies and manipulative messages. I didn't engage. No calls, no texts, no just one more conversation. It was hard at first because part of me wanted closure, but I realized closure doesn't come from her. It comes from me. I focused on rebuilding my environment. I moved out of the house we shared and got a small apartment that felt like mine. No traces of her, no reminders of the lies, just space to breathe. I even kept the dog, of course. That little guy became a constant source of comfort and honestly, probably saved my sanity more than once. Work became a refuge. I threw myself into projects, took on challenges I'd previously avoided, and started networking again. I wanted to feel capable, independent, and unstoppable, not like someone who'd been left in the dust. Socially, I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. Dinner parties, road trips, casual hangouts. People who reminded me that life isn't only about heartbreak. Laughing with them felt like a balm for the soul. I didn't rush dating, I gave myself time. But when I eventually dipped my toe into the dating world, I was ready. Not because I wanted to replace her, that's a trap, but because I finally knew what I deserved and what I wouldn't tolerate. Moving forward isn't about forgetting her. It's about remembering your worth and refusing to let anyone take that from you. Every step I took, from exercising to rebuilding my social life, from setting boundaries to exploring new hobbies, reminded me that my life is mine again. And slowly, day by day, the pain became less sharp. It was still there, yes, but it no longer controlled me. Looking back now, I can see the full arc of what happened. The lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, and ultimately the growth. And as much as I never want to relive any of it, I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me. First, I learned that trust is precious and fragile. Once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to fully restore. And if someone consistently lies, cheats, or manipulates, that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of who they are. Second, self-respect is non-negotiable. Walking away was the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was the right one. Staying would have been a slow erosion of my dignity and sanity. Sometimes love isn't enough and you have to choose yourself. Third, healing is a process, not an event. The first weeks were awful. The first months were rough. But little by little, through running, reconnecting with friends, picking up hobbies, and setting boundaries, I started to feel like me again. That's the real victory. Reclaiming your life from someone who tried to destroy it. Fourth, pay attention to the red flags. Don't ignore gut feelings or excuses. If something feels off, investigate. Protect yourself emotionally and practically. Finally, you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. You'll hurt. You'll cry. You'll feel like your world has been ripped apart. But eventually you'll find your footing, rebuild your life, and maybe even laugh again. And that laughter, that's proof you're not broken. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, don't let someone else's lies define your reality. Gather your strength, trust yourself, and take back your life. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. As for me, I'm here a year later, alive, thriving, and finally free from the person who thought she could control my happiness. And honestly, it feels incredible.